Does anybody have a question? We'll get started with somebody with a mic or any. Okay. Great.
Good evening. One of the things, I don't think this is for it needs to be turned on. One of the things I noticed I couldn't help but overlook is. Hello? Okay.
Okay, there we go.
One of the things I couldn't escape noticing is that most of these projects were civic projects with very deep pockets. I'm sure the Chinese was throwing billions of dollars at their civic center. I've always been asking, what's the timeline and what's the cost? Because there are a lot of negative externalities in somebody spending my money for infrastructure, so CCP or GGP can make a lot of money from Washington, D.C. or from Columbia, Maryland. I'm going to retire in this community, at least I expect to, unless you folks drive me out, with tax increases. So I'd like to know, what's the economics of what you're doing? Not only that, but I'd like to make a point. Columbia is a lovely city because it's a people city. It's not a brick and mortar city. And I think of it in terms of a beehive, not an ant's nest. And what you're turning Reston, I've seen Reston, I get a feeling I'm in a nest and not in a city. I grew up in New York. I left New York because I hate that type of environment, being closed in and feeling I'm being compressed by buildings. So I don't like tall buildings, and I have a real objection to a very high density downtown areas. Thank you.
Okay. Well, there was one question: what are the costs and what are the economics? At this stage, of course, we're not. We haven't put forward this framework plan that you could attach any kind of cost to. But I would say that there is the expectations in all of these projects. Now, the Olympics is an exception because that investment was by the country for the future of the country, so it wasn't just related to Beijing. But in these other projects, like the Charleston project and others, there was careful scrutiny about is it worth the doing? Will there be benefit and spin-off from that level of public investment? And Mayor Riley was mayor of Charleston for about 35 or 40 years, and he proved to be a very popular mayor, so there was faith that those were good judgments and that was a good investment. So that is one of the relevant questions always to ask: is it worth the doing? Is that a good investment? And is there a better way to reach your objective? So I think it's a legitimate question about cost and economics. The second point was just an observation, so it wasn't really a question that we can answer.
I think Tom would like to make a comment, actually.
Yes, I was going to say one thing because I was involved in Reston and then also now in Columbia. And while people in Columbia may not like Reston Town Center, Restonians like Reston Town Center. And Reston Town Center reflects 3 to 4 years. Actually, we started planning it in 1982, and as Alan mentioned, it opened in 1990. It reflected hundreds of citizen and community input, meetings and sessions. And when we went to public hearings, we got 25 groups, civic groups, all spoke in favor of the zoning. It's their zoning. It's the town center they wanted. So, this is Columbia. The method will stay the same. The process of interaction with the community, and as Alan mentioned, our planning here in Columbia has grown out of and in response to the charrette that was citizen-based, and then also the county process. So you won't have Reston Town Center unless everybody from Reston was in that charrette and continues to be in these meetings. You have your own vision, your own history, your own culture, and your own expectations of what it is to have a place, your central gathering place. And it is going to have a different architectural expression. It's going to have a different set of priorities. Many of them will match, many of them will overlap. But I think that and the Woodlands was the same. The Woodlands Town Center reflects the central district that the residents and citizens of the Woodlands wanted. And each place is responsive to a set of patterns where there's community villages, and then there's a town center. So in this instance, this process is one following that same methodology of citizen input, citizen involvement, interaction, and an evolution. And is every single resident of Reston happy, or is every single resident of, everybody, there's some people who would love to see this change or that change, but it is a greater consensus of what people viewed as their town center. So this is going to respond and respect the processes here, and it'll be a very different town center than the Woodlands or Reston. Those are just examples of principles, and when you look at the built environments there, you don't see all the meetings, all the input sessions, all the discussions, all the things that preceded the built reality. But that's the commitment we have, is to build off of the process that's already started.
Okay, I have a couple questions here on the cards, and I'll take one from the cards and then from the audience. This is a long one, but it's an interesting one. Route 175 is the main thoroughfare running through downtown Columbia, which is then flanked here in the center by this building and the mall. How challenging will it be to redesign this existing architecture, and how disruptive will it be to driving, walking, and parking during the construction?
Well, first, that assumes that there are changes to, is that assuming that 175 is modified?
Well, it talks about the flanked by this building and the mall, and redesigning the architecture,
Okay.
and I would assume they mean right in this area.
Well, whenever projects are phased or staged, there has to be attention to access through the construction process, and one would expect that there would be measures to make sure that traffic works during the phasing and during staging. You have to deal with those issues.
Great. Who is next? Okay.
Hello, is this working? Can you hear me? My name is Betsy Singer, and I am very much interested in the series of community forums, or fora, anyways, plural of forum. And I guess the question I have is that you're doing the framework, and then later on is the Kevin Bowers, who's doing the biodiversity, biohabitats, planning. Is that all going to fit together so that your framework comes first, and then he'll have the specifics of the landscaping part, and then with the understanding that the plan will be revealed on April 28th, I believe it is, there's not much time between now and then, so you must have done some work on it by now. I'm just asking the question so we know what to expect on the 28th.
The presentations with each consultant on each evening reflect that specific topic, but the team is working together collaboratively now. So there is a process underway of a team working together.
So these are all aspects of the plan, and they're
Right.
sort of fit together like pieces of a puzzle.
It's too much to cover in one evening,
Right. So this is a build-up to what we can expect on
Right.
the 28th.
Right.